Hey guys, and welcome back to Biologue. Hope you're having a great day and a great week. Now this week's video is going to be an IGCSE past paper video based on the topic nervous system and coordination. So we're going to look at some questions. Now make sure you guys are subscribed to Biologue because I have a lot more exciting videos coming up, such as IB and VCE biology explainer videos where I explain topics with animations, pictures or drawings, etc. And we break down very difficult concepts into ways that we can more easily understand them. Also make sure to stay tuned for upcoming exam revision videos as well as how to study effectively for exams. And without further ado, let's get into this video. Alright, figure 1.1 shows part of the human eye and 3 neurons that conduct electrical impulses between the eye and the brain. These neurons are involved in the pupil reflex. So you have the diagram given here. The first question is state the type of neuron identified as A. So pretty much what you have to think about is the entire system of how a impulse gets transmitted through the nervous system, right? You have sensory neurons, you have interneurons or relay neurons, which is the middle part, it is connecting the sensory and the motor neuron, and the last thing is your motor neuron. So first identify what is C. C is actually the part that connects the photoreceptors to the relay neuron, right? Photoreceptors are the light sensitive receptors in the retina. Remember, this part is what? It's the retina. So retina consists of light sensitive receptors called photoreceptors, which are used for detecting the light, and then once the light is detected and the information is sent via a nerve impulse to the relay neuron where it synapses with a relay neuron. So this where it actually uses a sensory organ or a sensory area, which is the retina, because it contains light sensitive cells. It detects something, so it senses something, right? So it uses that and then it sends a sensory impulse. This is where the sensory impulse is sent. So where does a sensory impulse get sent? Sensory impulse gets sent in the sensory neuron. So this is the sensory neuron, this is the relay neuron or the interneuron. And then where does the sensory neuron and the relay neuron connect to? This connects to the motor neuron. So this should be the motor neuron. Hence we can say that A is the motor neuron. Another reason why A is the motor neuron is because look at here, this is actually the iris. This is where it connects, right? This is the iris, and the iris is this flattened tissue. Alright, it's a flattened sort of tissue that consists of muscles within it. And remember, muscles are used in accommodation and focusing, which is very two important properties of what an eye can do. Right, so state the type of neuron identified as A. It is the motor neuron. So that is your answer, motor neuron. Alright, so moving on to the next one. Table 1.1 shows the names of some parts of the eye, their functions and the letters in figure 1.1 that identify the parts of the eye. So now you have to complete the table 1.1. Suspensory ligament. So suspensory ligament's function is to change the shape of the lens so that it can be used for accommodation or focusing, right? It is to change or control the shape of the lens. Right, for accommodation. Now remember, definitely something you can get wrong here, or common mistakes that people do here is get the spelling of accommodation wrong. So make sure you know what the spelling of accommodation is, because I remember when I did one of the papers and when I did my exam for this topic, I got the spelling of accommodation wrong. So that's definitely something that I feel like a lot of people can make mistakes in. So for accommodation or focusing. This is 4 marks, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically 1 point per box, yeah. Alright, moving to the next thing. So the next thing says function as contracts in response to a bright light. Alright, remember bright light. So this talks about control of light intensity. Which muscles are involved in the control of light intensity? The control of light intensity is carried out by the circular or radial muscles. So which one contracts in response to bright light? Alright, contraction in response to bright light happens because of the circular muscles. So how I like to remember it is circular muscles contract in bright light, radial muscles relax in bright light. So they are antagonistic, they work antagonistically. These pairs of muscles work antagonistically, which means that they work in opposition to each other, they work oppositely. So how I like to remember is circular muscles contract in bright light, radial muscles relax in bright light, and then opposite in dim light, circular muscles relax, radial muscles contract. So this is circular muscles. Circular muscles contract in bright light. And which letter is this? Let us check. The letter for this should be E, right? Yeah, pretty much, because these muscles, remember, where are they placed? They are placed in the iris. So these muscles should be present in the iris. This is for circular muscles. Alright, so this is E. So the answer for this is E. Now, cornea. The cornea is used for when light actually bends through it. So light bends through the cornea and then it gets placed, or basically it then falls on the retina. Light bends through the cornea. And gets placed, or you can say lands on the retina. Alright, if you want to write some features about the cornea, you can say that it is the clear region. It is the clear white region actually. So white region present in the eye. Alright, contains a high density of cones. Remember, cones are the ones used for color vision. Alright, colored vision. Contains a high density of cones. This is the fovea. Fovea is the region which is actually a depression sort of thing. You will see it here. This is the fovea. It is a depression sort of region or bump sort of region inside the retina. Alright, so this is the retina here. So if this is the retina, this entire thing, then this bump sort of region is the fovea. And fovea has the highest concentration or density of cones for colored vision. This is, which one is it? It is J, right? Yeah, correct. It is J. So that is what is pointing here. Yep, it is J. So the answer for that is J. Okay, cornea, we actually forgot to write what letter it was. Cornea is, let's go back and check. Cornea is D, right? Because it is the clear or sort of white region right in front of the iris. So that is D. So cornea is labeled D. Alright, next question. So C, part 1. The eye can adjust how light is refracted through it in order to focus on a near object. State one process that uses energy when focusing on a near object. One process that uses energy when focusing on a near object. Now remember, it says eye can adjust how light is refracted through it. This question itself is explaining the process of accommodation. Right, accommodation or focusing. So your answer cannot be accommodation or focusing. This is something I made a mistake in when I was doing this paper in my IGCSE finals. So pretty much you cannot write accommodation or focusing as the answer, because the question itself gives you a direct answer that the eye can adjust how the light is refracted. This itself is called accommodation. So one process in accommodation that uses energy is the contraction of the ciliary muscles. Alright, remember, circular muscles are used for light intensity control. Ciliary muscles in the ciliary body is used for accommodation or focusing. That's very important. Remember that a lot of students make mistakes in this. Alright, next thing. Mitochondria require oxygen to release energy. Oxygen is transported to the cells in the eyes by red blood cell. State the name of the molecule in the red blood cell that carries oxygen. This is very easy and self-explanatory. This is hemoglobin. Alright, red pigment that carries oxygen and transports it to the rest of the body parts. Explain how oxygen in the capillary reaches the cells in the eye. So this happens because of diffusion. Remember, gases like oxygen always are transported in the body by diffusion. So you need to write that this occurs by the diffusion of oxygen, basically diffusion through the cell membrane. through the capillary walls or the cell membrane of the capillary. Cell membrane of the capillary, and this occurs down the concentration gradient. Basically you can say from a high to low concentration. Alright, from a high to low concentration. This is 2 marks, but I like to add one more point. So pretty much down a concentration gradient. And diffusion, why is it diffusion and why not something else? This is how I like to think. Why is it diffusion and why not something else? This is because it does not require energy, right? So from high to low concentration, and does not require energy in the form of ATP from respiration. Energy in the form of ATP, ATP from respiration, unlike active transport. Alright, here you can write unlike active transport. So this already receives your 2 marks. In fact, it would actually receive 3 marks if it was higher, because you covered 1, 2 and 3 points. Alright, next thing. Eyelashes and eyelids are mechanical barriers that help to prevent particles and pathogens from entering the eye. Give other 2 mechanical barriers that defend the body against pathogens. So very easy. Mechanical barrier means you can write skin and you can write nose hairs, or basically hairs in the nose. Hairs in the nose. Right, next thing, state the name of white blood cells that digest pathogens. Very important. Remember, there are 2 types of white blood cells. Either you have lymphocytes or phagocytes. Lymphocytes are the ones that produce antibodies which attach to the antigen of the pathogen, but the phagocytes are the white blood cells that engulf the pathogens. They have digestive enzymes that breaks down the pathogens and kills the pathogens with the bacteria or basically any foreign material. So the name of the white blood cell is phagocyte. Right? Phagocyte or macrophages, but typically in IGCSE the term used is phagocyte. Now, conjunctivitis. So conjunctivitis can be caused by pathogens and affects the tissue lining the eyelids and covering the sclera. People with conjunctivitis that is caused by a pathogen can develop active immunity. So that's a key term. Underline that. Active immunity. Explain why the shape of specific parts of a pathogen is important to the development of active immunity. So here you have to talk about specificity. Specificity, very important. So here main thing is shape of the pathogen. It's not asking you for the shape of the the cells, the immune cells, right? It's not asking you for the shape of the cells that are involved in the immune system, like the lymphocytes or the phagocytes. It's instead asking you for the shape of the pathogen. So already the first thing that should come to your mind is that pathogens contain different antigens, right? They contain antigens that differ from each one. So they contain different antigens, or basically different pathogens have different antigens. Different pathogens have different antigens. And each antigen has a specific shape, okay? With a specific shape. With each antigen having a specific shape. Now you have to talk about the relation of these immune cells with a pathogen. So now you have to say that lymphocytes, which are a type of white blood cell, lymphocytes produce antibodies which have a complementary shape to the antigen of the pathogen. Produce antibodies that have a complementary shape. They have a complementary shape to the antigen of the pathogen. Alright, hence antibodies attach to these antigens and are able to neutralize the pathogen. Attach to the antigen antigen and are able to neutralize and destroy the pathogen. Neutralize and destroy the pathogen. Alright, so 3 marks is covered. Sorry, 3 marks is covered. Yeah. So most insects and some crustaceans have compound eyes. Yes, we know crustaceans have compound eyes, which gives them a crude view or a crude angle, means that they are able to see the image from all of, many different angles. So state the name of the group that contains insects and crustaceans. This is very important. Insects and crustaceans come under arthropods. Right, you will find this in the first chapter of your textbook about classification. Alright, so question 3. Figure 2.1 shows a diagram of the liver and blood vessels that enter and exit from it. Name the blood vessel L. So remember, look at L. Where is L? So L is here. Now basically this is the blood vessel that connects the small intestine and the liver. So what blood vessel transports the substances from the small intestine to the liver? It is the hepatic portal vein, correct? So L is the hepatic portal vein that transports blood containing nutrients, which is the mixture of sugars and amino acids, from the small intestine to the liver. So name blood vessel L. Blood vessel L is the hepatic portal vein. Alright, so now moving to B. Blood vessel J is a vein. State 2 structural features of veins and explain how each feature is related to its function of returning the blood to the heart. Okay, so the first feature of veins, overall it is a vein, we know. So now what is the feature of a vein that helps in its function of returning blood to the heart? First thing is that veins, they have a large lumen, correct? Veins have a large lumen, and this large lumen allows the blood to be able to flow back into the heart at low pressure, right, with minimal pressure. So the feature is that first they have a large lumen, or a large opening. Alright, large opening, and this allows blood to flow through it at low pressure. It allows blood to flow through it and into the heart. Blood to flow through it and into the heart at low pressure. Into the heart at low pressure. The second feature of veins is that veins are less muscular, right? They basically have a wall that is less elastic than, or less thick than the arteries. So they have less elastic or less muscular walls, or less muscular wall, and this allows for lower blood pressure to be maintained. Alright, this allows for lower blood pressure to be maintained. It's okay if you write the same point as the explanation, as long as it properly explains your feature that you have written in your answer. So it again allows for the low blood pressure, for a low blood pressure to be maintained, sorry about the pen, because it seems like it's not working. So it allows for low blood pressure to be maintained. Alright, moving on to the next thing. Blood samples were taken from each of the glucose vessels J, K, L and M after 2 hours after a meal of rice, which is carbohydrates. Alright, meaning already when you look at the question, you should think of it like this. Now they've eaten a meal of rice, they've eaten some carbohydrate, meaning the glucose level in their blood must have increased. So this must have something to do with the concentration of glucose, and exactly it is that. So concentration of glucose in these blood samples. Calculate the percentage increase in the concentration of glucose between blood vessel J and blood vessel L. Remember, they will always give you between this blood vessel, between that blood vessel, or between this and between that. So make sure you underline or circle the part that is actually asking for you, and you don't calculate for something else, because then you'll obviously get the wrong answer. Express it through the nearest whole number. This is also very important, because if you don't write it in specific terms, as in you don't write it specific to what's being asked, you will lose 1 mark. Alright, and the thing is 2 marks. So Alright, calculate the percentage increase. Percentage increase between J and L. So mark that J and L, 135 to 181. So that is, remember, percentage increase is what? It is final minus initial divided by initial into 100. Always make sure to write the formula as well, because then it gives a impression of a very good coherent answer to the examiner. So percentage increase is, also don't write arrow mark, like here I've written percentage and arrow mark, but don't write that. Write action, write a full thing as percentage increase. So final minus initial is 181 minus 135 by 135 into 100, and when we calculate this, it's going to be 34%, because they said round off to whole number. All right, so that's very important. So that's 34%. All right, moving on to the next thing. Control of blood glucose by the liver is an example of homeostasis. Explain how the liver lowers blood glucose concentration when it is too high. So for this, what you need to talk about is how the blood glucose concentration is lowered, right? So what is released when the blood glucose concentration is high? When the blood glucose concentration is high, insulin is released, correct? So that it can convert the blood glucose, so that it can convert the glucose into glycogen for storage. So that's the first point. When blood glucose is high, or when blood glucose concentration, whatever you want to do, blood glucose concentration, I have written CONC dot just as a short form, but make sure you write full thing as concentration. Do not write CONC just for the sake of convenience. When blood glucose concentration is high, insulin is released from the pancreas. Insulin is released from the pancreas. Now if you want to be more specific, you can say insulin is released from the certain cells in the pancreas, which is the beta cells. When blood glucose is high, insulin is released from, insulin is released from the pancreas, and this insulin, the insulin converts the glucose to glycogen for storage in the liver. Alright, converts to glucose, basically converts glucose to glycogen. When this glycogen is now produced, it gets stored in the liver. Alright, so you have how many points, how many marks was this? 2 marks. Let us see if we have covered. So when blood glucose concentration, insulin is released, that's 1. And insulin converts glucose to glycogen, that is another point. For storage in the liver, that's another point. Always make sure you write 1 extra point than with the marks allotted, so that you make sure you're actually getting those marks in case you forget something. Name one other factor in the human body that's also controlled by homeostasis. This is very easy. You can either write water potential, which is the basically amount of water, or simply water, or you could write temperature. Alright, or you could write temperature of the body. If you want to be specific, the process is called thermoregulation. Alright, thermoregulation. So this is your answer. So that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, do make sure to like, share and subscribe to Biologue for more such IGCSE past paper videos, as well as IB biology videos, as well as VCE biology videos. So make sure you stay tuned for all of those upcoming videos, and I will see you guys next week. Have a great day.